According to the United States Department of Justice, Native and Indigenous women are murdered at a rate 10 times higher than the national average. All over North America, these women are going missing and being murdered at an alarming rate. It was reported that 4 out of 5 Indigenous women have experienced violence in their lifetime, and 88% of these crimes are committed by someone of a different race, according to the National Institute of Justice. This affects us directly because California happens to be the state with the 6th highest number of missing and murdered Indigenous women cases. In this speech, I will be informing my audience about the disproportionately large number of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Before I get started, I would like to define the term Indigenous. According to Merriam-Webster, Indigenous refers to the earliest known inhabitants of a place, especially if this place was colonized by a now dominant group. I will first discuss the history of these crimes and the reasons why Indigenous women have fallen victim to them. Then I will talk about what the government and police departments have done to combat these attacks. Lastly, I will discuss the major movements and groups that have emerged in response to these crimes. I will now discuss the history and reasons why Indigenous women have become targeted. The history of these violent acts can be traced all the way back to the arrival of the Europeans in the Americas. When they arrived, they began extinguishing and relocating Native groups, as well as beginning a multiple century-long sex trade. According to Sarah Deer, author of the book, The Beginning and the End of Rape, sex trafficking of Indigenous women is almost indistinguishable from the colonial tactics of enslavement, exploitation, and relocation. Abuse towards Indigenous women has become dismissed and unimportant, and we are still feeling these effects today. According to the New York Times, there is a multitude of reasons why these crimes are still prevalent today, but activists believe it's due to generations of forced removal and land seizures, as well as the inadequacy of the police. The constant land seizures and relocation of Indigenous groups makes it easier for their members to be displaced or abducted. According to the U.S. Department of the Interior, the U.S. government has left roughly 56 million acres of land for Native American tribes and individuals. This equates to about 0.00% of the land they used to own. The location of this land also plays a role contributing to the abuse of Indigenous women. Environmentally damaging industries such as mining, fossil fuel extraction, and logging, which attract large groups of male workers, often border reservations. In 2015, after an oil production company set up in Montana, the sexual assault rate for women in a nearby reservation increased by 75%, according to the Collective Liberty. Another contributing factor is that the police have underreported cases, racially misclassified victims, and have poor record-keeping procedures, according to the Native Women's Wilderness Organization. The National Crime Information Center has reported 5,712 missing or murdered Indigenous women cases as of 2016. Yet, the U.S. Department of Justice only reported 116 cases into the missing persons database. The New York Times reported that many Indigenous women cases are classified as Hispanic or Asian, which severely decrease the amount of these crimes. Now I will discuss what the government and police departments have done to combat these attacks. In 2019, according to the Department of Justice, President Trump signed Executive Order 13898, which created a task force that would investigate missing and murdered Indigenous women cases. This task force held more than 15 in-person meetings with various tribes, developed new protocols, solved cold cases, and increased awareness, all within their first year of operating. NPR reported that after Wyoming experienced an influx of these cases, they developed a task force to further investigate these crimes. 6 other states with large amounts of cases have also adopted task forces, one of them being California. I will now talk about major movements and groups that have emerged in response to these crimes. The Red Dress Project highlights the violence against Indigenous women by hanging bright red dresses from trees to symbolize the women we have lost, according to Vogue magazine. This movement's goal is to give these Indigenous women a much-needed voice while spreading awareness and educating others on this matter. The color red symbolizes many things, such as blood, anger, and love, but it was ultimately chosen because the color red is said to be the only color spirits can see in many Native cultures. In this speech, I discussed the history and reasons why the disproportionately large number of missing women's and Indigenous women happened. Then I talked about the government and police departments, how the governments and police departments have responded. And finally, I discussed movements and groups that were set up in place to combat these violent attacks. In conclusion, violence against Indigenous women is a serious issue in the United States and is deserving of equal investigation. Thank you.